Hi, I'm Dr. Tricia Pingel, and welcome to What Am I Modeling? Today, my guest is Ileka Falette, and we are going to talk about weight. We're going to be talking about how she was labeled as overweight as a child and how that turned into a constant diet, a diet that didn't help her lose weight, but in fact helped her gain more weight. And it wasn't until she ditched that label and allowed herself to step into who she truly was and who she always knew she was from the time she was little to start to see results and start to make changes. Ileka has shared this journey on her YouTube channel. Now, Ileka helps people gain presence on YouTube and make it a profitable revenue stream. She has worked in corporate. She now runs her own company. She helps people build authority. She coaches them, and most importantly, helps them step into who they are authentically, which is the whole point of this show. When you show up as yourself, it's amazing what you can do. It is my pleasure to welcome Ileka. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
How nice to see you, Ileka. I'm so excited to have you here. Thanks so much.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here. It's so great seeing you, Tricia.
Oh, it's always great seeing you. And this conversation, I think, is going to hit home for so many people, especially those. I mean, there's so many different layers to your story, right? We're going to be talking about weight loss, but we're also going to be talking about, I'm guessing, how that had an impact on your identity, how that had an impact on the way that you view your body, the way that you look at yourself, the actions that you take, and the way that you now hold yourself and present yourself to the world. Am I wrong?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So first of all, can you just kind of give everyone just the quick version of, because you've lost a lot of weight and this wasn't something that came easy to you or something that you just, it took a while to get you to the point to make that switch. So can you give everyone a general overview? And then I'm going to dive into a lot of the behind the scenes of that and lift up the hood, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. I used to joke, and I actually had a YouTube channel for a long time where I talked about it. In one of my first videos, I said I was born fat. Like that's literally how and that's what I was told too, growing up. Like you were born 10 pounds. So you were, my older sister, of course, older siblings are always jerks, right? So So we're super close now, but as a kid, she's like, you were always big and da da da. So I was born the biggest, right? Born 10 pounds. So, and then growing up, put on my first diet at 8 years old. And
So you were obese as a child as well?
so here's the thing. I wasn't, but it was the 80s. So everyone else was, a size 0. They were 8 pounds weighing 60, or they were 8 years old weighing 60 pounds. I was 8 pounds and I weighed 130 pounds. But here's the kicker. I was 5 feet tall. So at 5 feet tall, because you're tall, I'm tall, right?
Yeah.
So at 8 years old, I was 5 feet tall. No other 8-year-olds were 5 feet tall. So they're measuring me against all other 8-year-olds. Now, if you think about it, 135 pounds, it's at 5 feet, it's not tiny, right? But it's not massive either. It's like, just kind of watch what you eat, kind of that stage, right? Maybe go from, maybe not go out to ice cream so much or whatever, right? That's kind of what you look at that weight, right? But I was put on a really strict diet at 8 years old. And so I was on diets from 8 years old until 37 years old when I finally realized that it didn't have to be as hard as I was making it in my head. So
Well, we're told it's hard.
yeah, always.
We're
Yep.
told, this is difficult. It's really hard to stay healthy. It's really, you need to be really on top of it. And it kind of creates this perfectionistic view of the world. Like if we're not following what everyone tells us that we're supposed to do, we're bad or we're
Exactly.
doing it wrong. And then I think that fuels us psychologically to sometimes self-sabotage our own health, whether that's overeating or for me, it was undereating. But it's just interesting. You're right. How they just told us at those times, this is what it's supposed to be.
Right. Exactly. It's so different in the 80s. Like let's put your 8-year-old on a diet, mom. And my mom, who'd never had a weight problem in her entire life, didn't know what to even do. So they're like, oh, she has to write down everything she eats. And so I'm going through all these things as an 8-year-old. And you've got to eat, you've got to eat like celery and peanut butter. Everybody else gets ice cream. you know?
There's no nutrition. Yeah, it was something with no nutrition either. I know our whole house was filled with, I think they were called Sorby. They were little diet candies.
Yeah.
No, they were awful. But, my mom was a model. I was growing up in that industry and we weren't allowed. And I say that, we weren't allowed to eat
Yes.
anything sweet. We're not allowed to have dessert. We're not
Hmm.
allowed to have carbs.
Yeah,
It was a malnourished diet, but I was
exactly.
allowed to have these little diet candies that were full of crap,
Complete crap. Yes.
suck on all day long. So, okay, so you're put on a diet from the time you're 8 years old. You didn't crack the code to this or figure this out until you're close to 40.
Right, exactly. 30 years later. So one of the things is that I realized is that being on a diet from the time I was 8 and just being on and off, right? It's not like I was on a diet 24/7, but on and off. What it did was it made me gain weight.
Yeah.
So eventually by 10, no, by like 11 or something, I was 200 pounds. So that's 3 years, right? From 8 to 11, 70-pound gain or 65 pounds gained, right? And so that's a massive difference. And that happened probably because I was put on a diet. Because when you're focusing so much on the food, on what you eat, on what you do, and everywhere you go, all the focus, all the conversations are around your weight. Eventually, you just you're like sabotaging. You're finding ways to eat more. Also, there's a bit of a tension aligned with that.
Well, of course. And especially at that age, too, you're going through who am I? Who am I going to be? How do I fit in with the world? What am I being labeled? It's the time of being labeled. And that,
Exactly.
that internal dialogue and that relationship with your body, that's had
Yeah.
to evolve over the years. I mean, I imagine before this diet, you probably didn't think much about what you looked like or
Yeah.
what that meant. But as a teen, going into your teen years or even into your early 20s, what was your relationship with your body at that point?
Yeah. Oh, it was constantly trying to cover up. I remember like everything I'd wear big clothes, always trying to pull things down over my butt, or trying to hide everything as if these clothes hid anything, right? And they actually made me look bigger than I was. Because I was also an athlete. I played basketball even to college, right? So I was an athlete. But I always thought that I was so big because I had been told I was labeled the fat one. So when you're labeled that forever, even when you're not that big, everyone thinks that you are and you own it, right? So I owned it. And one of the funniest things to me is that so at my biggest, I was like close to 350 pounds, somewhere around there, right? And that was around 30, maybe 36, 35 years old, something like that. After having my fourth child, somewhere near 350 pounds. And I remember when I lost the weight, like when I lost 120 plus, the lowest I ever got was I think 209 pounds or something like that, which at 5'10" looks amazing, honestly. It looks amazing. But I remember looking at the scale and realizing that when I thought I was so fat in like 10th grade and 11th grade, I weighed that exact same amount. And now everyone's telling me how great I look. I didn't grow. I was the same height.
Yeah.
Everyone's telling me how great I look, but they were calling me fat back in 10th grade because everybody else was a size 0 and I was not, you know?
It's so interesting because when you're talking about labels and we're being labeled, and as a mom, right, I look at our kids and this is kind of a diversion from weight loss, but I look at the labels that we're giving our children now. Maybe there's a learning disability, or maybe neurologically they're a little bit more stimulated or hyper or whatever. And now they're getting a label. Well, this is what you are. You can't succeed because you need special accommodation or because you're this or because you're that. And I do wonder, I mean, just looking at this, you accepted the label that you were given
Yeah,
despite
100%.
the fact that it wasn't necessarily true. And I do wonder, in a culture where we're wanting to label everything and decide, everyone's telling everyone what they are and what they need to do, is that really from, I guess, a modeling perspective, as we're modeling for our children and what we're doing, is that really healthy for them? Because
Yeah.
it kind of breaks my heart. I was labeled as well, and I own that as an identity. And
Uh-huh.
was that my identity? And I don't know. And so I do wonder about, what do you think about that? I mean, you have 4 kids. So, like, How do you feel about that with the younger generations as we're labeling not just weight, but also mood and, we're labeling everything, height, mood, physical appearances, cultures, disabilities, whatnot. What do you think about that? Do you think it's helpful?
I don't. I don't think it's helpful at all. I think that because the thing is, people think that, oh, if I label something, whether it be a good label or a bad label, right? It's still a label and the person tries to live into it. That's where the perfectionism comes in.
Yeah.
That's the good kid. Oh, you're so good.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're always trying to be so good and perfect, right? It's like
Yeah.
they're all of these labels and it's just like, let it go. Let them just be them. Maybe I'm just me. One of the things that I always say is, we all knew exactly who we were at 5 years old until someone else told us differently.
100%.
Right.
100%.
It's like at 5 years old, you knew who you were. And not only that, but you knew who you wanted to be. You're like, I want to be a fireman, which probably just meant you wanted to help people. Right.
Yeah.
And also you liked a little adventure. Or it's like, I want to be a doctor. I mean, you actually became a doctor, but most people wanted to be a doctor, just wanted to make people feel better. For me,
I did not want to be a doctor as a kid. If you would have asked me, even in college, like before I really started to get into the sciences, even in high school, if you said, Tricia, you're going to be a doctor, I would have said, no, I'm not. You're insane. But you're right. Just want to help people, educate people, hold space for people, be there for people. There's a book, I think it's called Nurture Shock. Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
It's on that concept of labeling and about the good kid, right? Oh, you're so good. We're so proud of you. You're doing everything right. And then when they don't do something right, it just damages their soul.
Yes.
And as a parent, I sit back all the time, and I only have 2, not 4, but I sit back all the time. I'm like, oh man, I just ruined him. Like, oh my God, what did I just do? Oh my God,
Right.
what did I say? I just ruined that child. And we do worry about that a lot. And I do think that our tendencies to protect them, be perfect parents, do everything right, does backfire because, we need to just let them be them. So what was the moment that became a turning point for you where you were like, okay, I'm going to lose this weight and I'm going to lose this weight for me?
Yeah.
What was that point?
You know what? It's funny. It was never a for me thing. Yeah. Because here's the thing. It can't be for you until you fully accept you.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't fully accepted me when I decided that the weight had to come off. So my turning point was really I was in the doctor's, speaking of the kids, I was at the doctor's office with all 4 of them because that's how we go to the doctor's office. And so they all had appointments at the same time. So I'm pushing through one at a time, And the doctor says, it was a woman doctor. She was relatively new. We hadn't worked with her before. And she starts telling me, like lecturing me about how, my daughter was a little higher on the scale and all these other. She was 1. And, 1. And she started saying, we should change the milk and all these other things. And I'm like, she doesn't even drink milk. So that doesn't make sense. But I think what hit me there in that moment was I literally had a flashback of that happening to me when I was like 7, 8 years old. And the doctor's telling my mom all these things and my sister's laughing because, and it's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, I will not let this happen to my child. So first of all, I told the doctor to shut up.
Good for you.
Be quiet right now. Look in the mirror if you want to talk about. I wasn't very nice. I've definitely healed. But first I said that. And I was already like working because I was on another diet, of course. So I was already working on something. But I think the point where I was like, no more, was seeing that happen to her, And so I was like, no, like something has to give. And it doesn't have to be this hard thing. I've just got to release the idea that I am the fat one, and really just step into my best, healthiest self. And so
How did you release that? How did you release that label that had been put on you in your mindset? How'd you do it?
You know what? I had to go in and think about who I thought the fat girl was. Like in my mind, the fat girl was the one who never got like a boyfriend. And these are things that we saw in 80s movies growing up. You watched them with me, right?
I did.
She never got the boyfriend. She never got like to be the lead of anything. No, she had no friends or, whatever, right? And I was like, that's not even close to who I am. I'm married, 4 kids, Husband's amazing. At the time I was like senior director at a Fortune 100 company. I was like, like I'm doing these things. I don't live the life that that girl lived. So why am I still allowing that why am I allowing myself or stepping into thriving everywhere in my life except for this one? And I already eat healthy, which that's the other thing. I would eat healthy, right? So oatmeal for breakfast, the healthy that everybody tells you, right?
Yeah.
Oatmeal for breakfast. 90% of our meals were organic. I didn't eat sugar, like all of those things. And yet the weight was staying, and it was staying because I was living in it. I was
Yeah.
living into the label. And so I literally decided to let it go and get like serious about my workouts, exercising 5 something a.m. Oh my gosh, it's so early, you know, and
I
I'm back
still
to
can't
working
do
out.
that one. I'm not a 5 a.m. workouter. I get up and work in the morning. I get my stuff done by noon so that I can go exercise in the afternoon because I don't want to do it in the morning.
So I know for a fact if I wait until pretty much anything after about 12 p.m., I'm probably lying. I'm probably not going to do it. It's just not going to happen that day. Like I really got to get it. I can do like a 9 a.m., but depending on what my schedule looks like, sometimes 9 a.m. is too late. So I literally have to be in there at least by 6. I do not like 5, if I'm being honest.
Did you struggle? Because I hear this a lot when people start to add the exercise. They've done the diet forever. It's not working. Even a healthy diet, let's not even say the word diet, but let's say
Right.
they're
Healthy
eating
eating.
nutrition focused, like you're talking about, and they're like, okay, I'm going to step it out. I'm going to go work out. What I find is there's a lot of pain involved with it, right?
Mhm.
Because you're overweight, you're putting a lot of pain on the joints. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
Pick your heart, but it is hard. So a lot of people don't progress, or they start working out and they leave it at the same level. That's
Yeah.
what I find a lot of
They're
mistakes
just walking around the
They
neighborhood.
don't continue to up level it over time and give their body grace and recovery in between. How did you overcome that? Because
Yeah.
do you work out how many days a
Yeah.
week now?
Now I'm about 3 days a week. I
Okay.
need to step it back up. I want to step it back up, or
Mhm.
I'm going to. I decided that I'll be stepping it back up to 4 or 5 because I feel better on days that I work out and don't feel as good on days that I don't,
Yeah. So how did you overcome that challenge?
So for me, remember, I played basketball in college and everything. So I was always so exercising was always something I turned to whenever whenever I was serious about my health. But I'd never done it at 300 pounds.
Right.
I'd never really
Right.
gotten into it at 300 pounds. So what I did was I went to 2 things to help me. One, I had friends in my neighborhood. We all decided one Halloween that we were going to start working out together like that Monday. Like literally we got together and we were together like a Halloween party and decided we were going to work out together. And that Monday we started. We were going to the gym. One of them had a personal trainer and the personal trainer was working out with all of us. And the thing is, they fell off. They stopped going, and I kept going. The other thing that happened was my doctor told me that I should stop. I needed to stop because I had plantar fasciitis so bad in both my feet and, all these things. And I was like, this is how serious I was. I was like, just do a cortisol shot. Like, do whatever you got to do because I'm not stopping working out, because I knew if I stopped, I wouldn't start back. There's so many times where I stopped that I didn't start back. And I'd been on a roll since I had friends that started with me, and we were doing it together for probably 2-3 months. I remember we did it until the Christmas party because my friend had a Christmas party, the same when we had the Halloween party. She had a Christmas party. And so
And then she was like, forget it, I'm out, or what?
that's kind of what happened. I lost 25 pounds between that Halloween and Christmas.
Good for you.
Yeah. So I was seeing results. I was feeling better. My knees were still hurting a little bit. Were still hurting, but they were getting better. I was taking Advil, popping Advil every day, which is like the worst thing. And then I moved from Advil to tart cherry pills and curcumin. So I was taking those to help the inflammation in my knees and wearing knee braces. Like I was doing all the things. And it only really hurt for maybe the first couple of weeks.
Because most people stop. Their doctor says, hey, you have this problem, you can't do it, or you need to take it easy. I mean, I don't know, but you get to that point where you don't have a choice. If you don't lose the weight, the pain will get worse. But if you go to work out, you're going to have pain. So
Exactly.
what's that fine line and how do you stay motivated?
Exactly.
It's interesting.
And you
go ahead.
really quickly on that note, what's funny too is like if you've been an athlete before, your body has muscle memory.
Yeah.
And yeah. And for me, I can't, because of that muscle memory, I've actually got to push in order to see results. Like if I just decided, oh, I'm just going to walk around my, flat track at the school nearby, it's not going to do anything for me. I've done that before for years. It doesn't do anything. I've got to actually use my muscle and work because my muscle memory, my body's like, no, this isn't
Yeah.
it. This doesn't do anything for you. Like I've got to actually do some resistance training in order to really see results.
How
Yeah.
long did it take you to lose that? Was it 180 pounds?
120
120.
something.
How
Yeah.
long did that take?
A year.
That's it.
Yeah. It literally was a year
Wow.
because I was so determined. So, and it's funny, I often say that when we're that determined and our why is so strong, we can get it off, but it's not going to stay off. Not unless you actually you got to figure out what was keeping it on before in order for it to stay off. Otherwise, it'll come back. It'll find its way.
And yours was stepping into being the fat girl that can't do anything. That was the thing that kept you, right?
My why was really my kids.
Yeah.
I
Well,
didn't
yeah,
want my
your why.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, that's what it was for me. But the thing that allowed me to keep the weight off was a couple of things. One, I got so into it, I became a personal trainer. So
Yeah.
the vanity of embarrassment, I think was part of it, right? Like I was like, I'm not going to gain this weight back. And then people, I'd already shown before and after pictures and all that stuff on Facebook. I'd started a YouTube channel. So I was like, I'm not about to gain this weight back.
Yeah.
So there was that. But then there was also just the thought of, I knew I had certain goals. Like I wanted to have skin removal surgery and I wanted my kids to only know me as healthy, as opposed to knowing me as the mom that can't really do as much. Right. Like I wasn't able to I remember my son had a violin concert when he was like 8 and it was like this, it was a situation where I hate the way they do the concert at our elementary school because there's nowhere to sit. There's literally nowhere to sit. And so it's like standing room only. In standing room, you can't really see. So they had a space where parents could sit on the floor if they wanted to and be able to watch their kids. So I was at the point at that time where if I had sat on the floor, I wouldn't have been able to get back up.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't able to see him during his violin concert. And that was awful for me. And I was like, I won't allow myself to be in that situation again.
Yeah.
So it was just the push. And also the joy felt better than the food, or whatever it was that was keeping me, than the pain that was keeping me there. The joy of being able to sit things people don't realize, like being able to sit on an airplane and buckle your seatbelt and not be squeezing a little bit into the person next to you's seat, right? Like those things are a big deal. And most people don't realize it because, you take it for granted. Like everybody can sit in a seat. No, everyone can't.
Yeah. And you complain about the person next to you who's snoring when it's like, well, I'm grateful that I can buckle my seatbelt. I mean, it's those little things that we do.
Mhm.
We do oversee when we get busy and we get caught up in life and we forget to take a moment to just appreciate where we are in the journey too.
Exactly.
Like as far as you've come, you still have ways to go in just for growing up and being older and enjoying kids growing up and becoming stronger and learning new things. Like, so where you are in the journey is so precious from where you're going. How did the conversation with yourself change over this time?
Mhm. It's funny. I realized, so I've always been a pretty confident person in terms of, but what I was confident in changed. So I was always confident that, I was really smart. I could make really good money however I wanted to. Like I was always confident that I could do things, right? But I wasn't necessarily confident that I could go into a store in the mall and buy anything I wanted and wear it, like just put it on, leave without trying it on, those types of things. There was no confidence in that because I couldn't, right? And even things like one of the biggest things was that you don't realize until it's not happening anymore is I realized that I would hide a little bit. So I'm at the gym and I'm trying not to be seen, or I'm seeing people laugh and I'm assuming it's about me. No one's laughing at me, but in my mind, they're laughing at me, right? It's like all these little things that I didn't even know I was doing until I wasn't doing them anymore. Was really
that's
a big
a powerful one because how many people listening do that? Someone laughs and you think it's about you. You hide in the back of the dance class, right?
Right.
I've moved myself up to the front. I started in the back and just slowly moved myself up to the front because I was like, dude, if I'm here, I'm going to be able to see.
Exactly.
But, enter then for you this YouTube channel because you started sharing this on YouTube, which is an incredibly vulnerable thing to do. And I imagine very scary because one, now people know what's going on and they're holding you accountable and you're now setting an example for them. And, the show is about not just perfectionism, but also about pressure, the pressure we put on ourselves and how to take that pressure and turn it into something amazing. And I imagine that was a lot of pressure. Can you tell us about this YouTube channel and how that came to be? And because what an amazing thing to do.
You know what's so funny about the YouTube channel? So I started the YouTube channel because I lost my job, right? And I was like, oh, I'm going to make money on YouTube. It goes back to the 5-year-old thing. When I was 5, I wanted to be a famous TV star. So, you know, but I wanted to be famous and make people feel good. And that was always my thing. And so I looked at that as me wanting to be an actress, but really it was I wanted people to feel good by the things that I could create for them and help them to just feel better and be their best selves. And so with the YouTube channel, it all started just kind of being on YouTube, talking about health, talking about life. I called it Life Health Now originally. So talking about life, health, and like what's happening in the world right now. And I actually started with 2 friends, funny enough, but they didn't really want to be on. They just joined with me because I was afraid to do it by myself.
It's a good support system. It's
Right,
good.
exactly. So we lasted together all of about a month and a half, and they were just like, okay, Ileka, it's your channel. Because during that, people kept asking about weight and health and what I was doing. And so then I created like a vlog that went with the channel that was just showing the day-to-day, what was happening. And that I felt very comfortable with. But what I didn't feel comfortable with was showing myself working out, showing myself exercising, because again, I didn't know what that body looked like. And all I could see is the flaws in it, because I was always confident everywhere else, but not in the body, right? So what I would see when I would watch myself work out is I would see like the extra skin in my stomach hanging or something, or I would see like, well, my legs aren't exactly where I want them to be. I'm even looking at form, like anybody cares about that. Like I'm looking at every little thing and critiquing it. And it's like, because we're always our own worst critics.
Especially
And
in the mirror,
yeah,
especially when we look in the mirror, and especially women. I know men do it too. I'm not
no,
discounting you, but
right,
catch myself all the time looking in the mirror and going, and I'm like, what am I doing?
exactly. And why?
Why am I doing that?
Right. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, it comes down to who am I critiquing for? Why can't I look like this? Whose issue is it if I
Yeah.
look like this? You know?
Yeah.
And then also, am I healthy? Do I feel good
Yeah.
inside? Then why does like the hanging saggy stomach that was there because I had 4 kids and lost 120 pounds, why is that bothering me so much?
Yeah. And it does.
Hmm.
So you started talking about all this, and I imagine that
Hmm.
you had people starting to listen and you were inspiring them to do what they do.
Yeah. It grew really fast.
Yeah.
People began coming, watching, asking questions, asking me to coach them. I didn't even know what a coach was. I'm like, what are we talking about here? Like asking for help on their journey. Like, how did you do it, especially with 4 kids? And also I lost the weight while I was still, a senior director at a Fortune 100 company. So I had a pretty high pressure job while I lost the weight. And so I was sharing just efficiency tips on getting healthy. I was sharing like exercise tips, like, and how to do it more efficiently. I was sharing eating tips. And then I thought maybe I should get my like personal training certification or something. So I'm not just out here,
Making stuff up. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So with 4 kids, because I get this all the time, I can't do it. My kids are too young. I don't have time to go to the gym. I can't prepare meals. My kids won't eat it. I don't have time. I mean, time is a huge objection
Yes.
from most people from moving
Yes.
forward. And I always say, well, you have to create the time freedom in order to have the health freedom. And
Exactly.
you can create time freedom by
Oh, easy.
restructuring your day. And so you had young kids at this time. Still do. Your kids are not, how old are your kids now?
Yeah, the oldest is 17. So this was 2017.
Mhm.
So how
10
many years
years
ago was
ago.
that? I don't know. They were like 1 to like 9 back then or something like that. Yeah.
How did you, because I'm sure that was an objection of yours at some point. So how did you overcome that? What do you have to change in your mindset or your dialogue so that they
Yeah.
didn't stop you.
Well, the biggest thing was realizing that we can make it fun. We can make it a part of our everyday lives, you know? So there were times when the kids had to be with me, we'd do workout videos together. So we're sitting there watching like Sean T, whatever, right? Doing it together. I literally have videos, and this was even before I started on YouTube. I have videos of us together, like doing some sort of workout together, me and the youngest two, because I'd lost my, oh wait, no, this was after. Yeah, no, it was before I started on YouTube. It was me and the youngest two, because it was after I'd already lost my job. So they weren't in daycare anymore. They were home with me.
Yeah.
And so we're working out together, watching Sean T, and then we'd go upstairs and make food together. And so everything was together, and it actually wasn't as hard as it seemed. But when I was doing it, even when I was still working, and even when I started my own business, right, you're still maintaining that. You create time that allows you to exercise. So even if it's going and working out at 5:30 a.m., which I am not a morning person. Like, I love people who are like, oh, of course. I mean, other people can do that at 5:30 a.m. because they're morning people. I am not, like, by no means. Like, I could sleep until noon every day.
I was up at 5:05 this morning. I was like,
Oh my gosh. Right. Because you just get up. Not me. No, I could sleep. I have to have an alarm and then another alarm behind that in order to wake up at 5. I am not that person, and neither is my husband. So we'll both be in the bed until something wakes us up, which is so funny with 4 kids, because they can't wait to come in and try and wake you up. I mean, and I would even go and make something for them and then come back upstairs and go to bed. Like, that's what we used to do before,
yeah.
Like, that's how much we love our sleep. So I'm not a morning person.
Yeah.
So the whole concept of, oh, you can't do it in the morning, it's do you want, is it that important to you?
Yeah, I mean, what's important? What are your goals? I mean, in business, we set goals, right? Where do you
Exactly.
want to be? How much money do you want to make? What do you want to do with
Mhm.
your career? When we set our health goals, we tend to set them in a very strange way. It's like, well, I want to be 120 pounds. We don't say, I want to have more energy. I want to be disease free. I want to be able to get off the floor of the concert, that's standing room only. We don't say that in our goal. And so what happens is we pick
Exactly.
arbitrary goals, and then we keep moving the goalpost. And
Mhm.
we never celebrate the freedom that we have. And we start throwing these objections in, right? Well, I can't because I have kids. Well, I can't because I'm not a morning person. Well, I can't because I don't have time to prep. Well, I can't because I work a full-time job. And it's sad because you can.
Mhm.
And you're a full reflection of that. You can, but you have to love yourself enough and, I guess, step out of that label and that idea of who you think you are and become who you really freaking want to be.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So if we looked back over this whole journey from now backwards, and you were to pick a few words that kind of encompassed what this journey has meant to you or the lessons you've learned, what would those words be?
Mhm. Let me think. So when I think about what the journey has meant to me, it really leans into, I get to step into my true self. Like, I am who I wanted to be when I was 5 years old. Like, that's a big deal. You know, and it's funny when we look back. That's such a huge thing. I wanted to be a movie star. Well, my kids watch me on TV every day.
Mine too.
So they think I'm a movie star.
I know. There's a book on that. Do you know the name of that book? Because I forgot it. Someone referred it to me. Another guest actually had referred it to me. I'm going to have to reach out to him and ask. And it was a book about how when you're feeling lost and you don't know your way, you go back to what you wanted to be as a child, the things that, like, he was talking about how I was voted most likely to be famous, right? And I thought that I would be on a camera my entire life and talking to people and helping people, right? But then you get detoured because people say, oh, well, you should do this, well, you should do that. You kind of start to move away from all that, kind of what we're talking about. And it's saying, go back to your childhood and really look at those things. What did you play with? What did you enjoy doing? What did you want to be when you grew up? And start taking action towards a career that does that. And he gave me the name of the book, and gosh darn
That's
it,
so funny. I've never heard of that.
my brain is like, it just dropped it, and I must not have written it down very well. I will get back to you on that.
Thank you. You know what, though? I actually truly believe that even though we no longer know it, like, consciously, that our subconscious knows exactly who we're supposed to be, and it starts to work to guide us there.
Absolutely.
I became a freaking engineer, because you're good at math and science. You should be an engineer. all while I was in school for engineering, I was taking like acting classes and, and going out for model shoots and, things like that the entire time because that wasn't what I was supposed to be. My world, like, it's like I don't know if it's my guides, my angels, God, whatever was like trying to guide me to the thing I was supposed to be. And I was like, no, but I'm supposed to be an engineer. No, you're not. And it continues to try and guide us. And so we've got to listen that guidance, right? We have to really listen to it. And if we could close off all the crap around us that's telling us all the things, right? And shut that out and just listen to our truest self, our child self, we'll start aligning with the thing that we're supposed to do.
It's that constant battle between the conscious and the subconscious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what our brain tells us we're supposed to be doing versus what we truly want to do or what our gut instinct is. A gut instinct is something that I've trusted my entire life. And anytime something's gone wrong, it's because I didn't listen to it every time.
Yes.
Every single time. But we do start to question that. And I do think that is what our society falls into right now, especially with all the stimulation, all the overactive adrenal glands going on, all the stress that we're enduring, all the things that we're seeing, all the things that we're hearing. And we're not taking a moment to sit back and trust our gut instinct and trust our true selves. So I love that you were saying it's true self is kind of your word, honoring your true calling as a child, and whether that's led by our subconscious, whether it's led by God, whether it's led by whoever you believe it's led by, it is led, and it is laid out for you if you listen.
Exactly. And that's when we get to shine at our greatest, is when we're living in that truth, in that true self. Because one of the things that I have a friend, she's always like, man, you shine so bright. And I'm like, first of all, it's so sweet. But then it's just like, but then I don't always see it. And the reason is because you find yourself leaning into the thing that you're not supposed to do instead of the thing you're supposed to do. When we're in that thing that we are supposed to do and we're on that path we're supposed to be on, the light can't be dimmed.
No.
It can no longer be dimmed.
It's impossible.
Exactly.
It's it's amazing. And now for a career, you now support businesses and business owners and entrepreneurs in finding that same type of light and love for what they do. And that's really come full circle for you from being someone who is an outcast, essentially, or thought you were an outcast, into becoming an engineer, which was something that didn't fuel your passion, to finding your self-truth and then being able to pay that forward in a way that obviously lights your soul up. That's such a gift.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and I love it. Exactly. It's so funny. It's so funny that I thought I was an outcast too, because when I'll talk to some friends from high school and they're like, what the heck are you talking about?
You know what? It goes the opposite direction. I thought I was an outcast as well. And I was, 6 feet tall and 98 pounds, 100 pounds. I mean, I was just this twig.
Right.
And I thought nobody's going to like me because I'm weird and I'm outcast and I'm different and I'm a model and nobody understands that. I'm making thousands of dollars a day at 14 years old. Nobody gets that. Nobody understands. And, it's weird because, and I was also on a diet. So, when we sit back and we look at what our similarities are, we're just people all going through the same experience. Whether you're tall and skinny, whether you're short and chunky, whether you're black, white, whether you're outgoing, introverted, it doesn't matter because we're all coming from that same place of just wanting to be accepted and wanting to be loved. And then we're molded by our external environment and find ourselves, I don't know about you, but I commonly find we get to our 40s and we're like, oh my God, who are we?
Who am I?
And what are we doing? And why are we doing this? And let's just find ourselves again and figure out, what do we want to do with this next amazing chapter of our lives? And it's so powerful when you find it, but there's so many people who haven't come to that point that you've come to or that I've come to with that. And I'm really hoping that your story has encouraged somebody to say, you know what? Yeah, I don't need to live by this label. I can be me. And I want to be me, and I'm going to be me. So thank you for sharing such an amazing story and powerful story. Honestly, thank you so much.
No problem. I loved it. I love sharing it.
Well, as we wrap up, if you're speaking to the people listening, is there anything else you want to add about this journey, about this lesson, that you'd like to share before we go? And where can people find you?
Yeah. One last thing that I would love to add and share is how powerful it is to tell your story, how powerful it is to kind of stand in front and be you, be your truest self. And that's actually what I really found on YouTube was by me creating that YouTube channel and eventually my friends saying you got to do it by yourself forced me into doing it by myself, right? And when I was able to do that, it allowed me to really step out and speak not only my truth, but also speak just what was happening up here that I was allowing to just die. And it turned into so many amazing things. And so to folks who are out there, like what is that thing that will allow you to really stand in your power and speak your truth and show what you're modeling, right? Like it really is a cool thing to do. That's why I love doing YouTube so much because I'm able to just come out and just be me, you know? And people and you find that audience, you find your people just stepping out and being you. It's the most amazing thing in the world.
It's a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
So grateful for you.
Yeah.
And let people know where they can find you. If they want to
Yeah.
connect with you and find you, where do they find you?
Yeah. So you can find me in a couple ways. You can go on Instagram at Ileka Falette. And then also you can go to ilekafalette.com is probably the best way to get in touch with me because I've got all my stuff there from my YouTube channel to actually help people to step into their own YouTube channel and grow their YouTube channel, whether it's to monetize, to build authority, or to make some sales on your courses and DIY stuff, right? So I do that on YouTube. And so folks can actually find that at healthbusinessblueprint.com as well.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.
I had a wonderful time, Tricia. I'm so glad to see you.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Don't be
Take
strange.
care.